Hello there, I'm Joshua Joe, and welcome to This Month in Movies. Today we're looking at the DVD and Blu-ray releases of September 2016, so why don't we get right into it?
Let's get to it.
Okay, like I always say, these are just my thoughts and opinions. There are other films that do come out this month that I just don't recommend or I didn't see and didn't hear enough about to talk about. But the ones we are talking about are ones I did like and ones that I do recommend watching, obviously. And so why don't we get started with the first week of September, which is this week. I'm sorry I'm a day late, but today we have Money Monster. So Money Monster is directed by Jodie Foster, and it stars George Clooney and Jack O'Connell. And basically it is about, obviously, Wall Street finances and stuff. But it takes place in this show or this guy that gives financial advice, but really it's kind of like a silly kind of show. And this guy, Jack O'Connell's character, lost all his money because things obviously went bad, and is kind of like holding him hostage and trying to get the people that lost his money to give him back his money because he has a wife and a kid, or at least a girlfriend who's pregnant or has a kid. And so he's trying to provide for them. And so with this movie, there's actually this really interesting interplay between George Clooney's character, who's the host of the finance show, and Jack O'Connell's character. And it really does play with kind of the grey areas and how good people got rich off bad people suffering. And there's a lot of interesting stuff there. I don't think it's a great film, but I think it's an incredibly well executed film. Like, watching this film, the tension, the suspense, it's a very visceral film in that way, and that's probably what I enjoyed the most out of it: the filmmaking, the pacing, the tension. It does have stuff to say, but it doesn't say it as good as, say, The Big Short or Margin Call, but it still does enough that it does have a bit of substance. But overall, for me, it was more just sort of an exhilarating watch than a really big think piece. But I thought it was well done, and Jodie Foster did a really good job directing, and Matthew Liberty's cinematography, it looks different to what he usually does. I think I might have given it 4 stars when I first saw it, but when I thought about it for a bit, I think it's more of a 3.5 star film, but still a pretty good one.
You came here to get some answers. You deserve to get some answers.
Also in the first week of September, we have Whiskey, Tango, Foxtrot.
1, 2, 3, they're gonna run back to me.
Stars Tina Fey, you have Margot Robbie and Martin Freeman, and it's based on a memoir about a female journalist who went over to Afghanistan and kind of her experiences. And because of that, it is a memoir and it's based on her life experiences. There's not much of a through line, like with a plot or a story with a goal. It's more just showing her time there and just in bits and pieces, because obviously she was there for a few years, but this is a less than 2-hour movie. So there's not really that much narrative drive, but Tina Fey is incredibly charismatic, and Margot Robbie is good as well, and Martin Freeman is. And there's a lot to like in it. It's pretty funny, there's enjoyable parts, there's some good social commentary as well, but overall it's more of a light film that, and to me, it's like, it's not really comedy, it's not really a drama, and like, I don't know if I would call it a dramedy either, but it's kind of its own thing, its own tone. But I thought it was really well handled for what it is. It's not anything substantial, but it's still pretty good. So, like, I think I gave it 3 stars.
Kabul's first licensed female driver, Gulbahar Yousefi, hits the road in the first... That sucks. That sucks for women.
Also in the first week of September, we have the 30th anniversary of Labyrinth. I know this is a big cult film and a lot of people love it. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I remember enjoying it when I did. But 30 years, and unfortunately David Bowie passed away earlier this year, but you can see him in Labyrinth in the 30th edition. And it's a nice film, and Jim Henson did a really good job. I love the puppet work and everything, and a young Jennifer Connelly. It's a good film, and I enjoy it, and I really do need to rewatch it, so this gives me a bit of a reason to do that.
Where you go with a head like that?
In the second week of September, we have the Blu-ray release of Stir Crazy. Now this I bring up because obviously Gene Wilder did pass away this past week, and it's sad. And this is one of his films that I've been meaning to watch, but I haven't got around to. And it stars him and Richard Pryor, so I'm probably going to go check it out. and maybe you should too. I've heard good things, and I know a lot of people that do like it, so I'm pretty keen to check it out, and especially because I've been meaning to, but now I have more reason to do it.
Only these two guys could dress up like woodpeckers and get framed for robbing a bank.
For the third week of September, we have Keanu. Now, this film didn't end up getting a theatrical release in Australia, unfortunately. I know it came out in the States in the cinemas and got pretty good reviews. I mean, you have Key and Peele, and I've heard good things about it. But for some reason, it didn't come in theaters to Australia, so I'm really keen to check it out, especially because I heard good things, and it's supposed to be really funny, and it has an adorable kitten in it. And also because Key and Peele are pretty great. So I'm keen to check it out, and I know if you're in Australia, you'll probably be pretty keen too. We haven't gotten that many great comedies this year, and hopefully this is one of them.
Buckshot. So what you got? Me?
Appendix. Blam.
They took it out of my body.
What?
Also in the third week of September, we have The Meddler. Now this is a film that I had been meaning to watch. It was only like in cinemas for 1 or 2 weeks in my city. And I was really keen to see it, but unfortunately I was a bit busy at the time, and unfortunately I didn't get around to it, but it's finally out, and I'm really keen to see it. I like the director. She did Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist and Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. Lorene Scafaria. And I really like what she's done so far. This has Rose Byrne, who I love, and Susan Sarandon, and J.K. Simmons. So I'm keen to check this film out, especially because I was pretty disappointed that I missed it, and I had heard good things. So I'm really keen for this one. So if it interests you, maybe you can check it out too.
Please take a selfie.
Who are you sending a selfie to?
For the fourth week of September, we have Miles Ahead. Now, this didn't end up getting a cinema release in Australia, but it's actually screening at the Gallery of Modern Art in Brisbane sometime this month. So this one was actually directed by Don Cheadle, who also stars in the film. And I've heard really good things. It played, I think, at South by and some other festivals and got really good buzz. So I'm really keen to see it. I've been kind of interested in Miles Davis, so I haven't really looked into it, so maybe this might get me started on that. But yeah, I've heard good things, so I'd say check it out. Don Cheadle's a pretty interesting actor, and I hear he's a pretty good director too, so let's find out.
Do you have a ticket?
You're looking at it.
Also in the fourth week of September, we have Warcraft, The Beginning. Yes, this is an incredibly polarizing film. I don't think it's great at all. I think it's a film that has a lot of problems, but I still liked a lot of it. I think Duncan Jones did a really good job as a director. Visually, it's a gorgeous looking film. I love the shots, the action. It's a really well put together film. Unfortunately, the script is a bit of a mess. Like, all the orc stuff is really, really awesome and emotional, and you really connect to it, and it's really, really cool. And then all the human stuff just isn't interesting at all, and looks kind of like grown-ups playing dress-up, and just tonally, like, so many of the actors just seem like they're in different movies, giving different kinds of performances, and half of them look too modern, and the main wizard kid, I thought he was a terrible actor. The Travis Fimmel looked like he was having fun, and I thought Ben Foster was good. But yeah, it's really a film that's all over the place, but the orc stuff is really awesome, and I really admire the ambition, because it is an incredibly ambitious film, and they try to do a lot in a really contained time frame, and they do a lot of it without exposition, which I admire, but unfortunately it doesn't all come together. But I am really interested in this world, that even though the story itself wasn't as compelling as I'd like, the world was incredibly interesting, and I'd love to see more from it, and I know China loved this film, so hopefully it made enough money that we do get a sequel, because the world's really interesting. Unfortunately, this story just wasn't as interesting as the world, and had a lot of problems, but I still enjoyed a lot of it, especially the orc stuff. The orc stuff is awesome. And so for that, I gave it 3 stars. I'd say check it out if you're interested. If you're not interested, then yeah, it probably won't be your thing. And finally, for the last week of September, we have X-Men Apocalypse. Now, I know X-Men Apocalypse wasn't the best received of the X-Men films. It's definitely not the worst received. But I know that it didn't get the most good reviews, but I actually still enjoyed it. I can definitely see its problems and its flaws, and it's definitely a weaker film. Especially regarding the villain. As much as I love Oscar Isaac, it just wasn't written as well. And when you have a character so powerful like Apocalypse, it requires more logic and less plot holes, and this film had a lot of plot holes. And it's just like, there's great scenes in it, like the stuff with Magneto's pretty great. Quicksilver is awesome again. But yeah, this film is a bit of a jumble, but I still enjoyed it because X-Men was my comics growing up. And for me, there was just something about watching these characters that I really liked in these films. And there's like good action and there's some good character stuff, but overall the script itself is what let it down. I also, some of the VFX isn't that great. The cinematography, for some reason, it just seemed kind of weird this time around. I just felt the visual style of this film wasn't as strong as other Bryan Singer films. But I still enjoyed it, and for that I gave it 3 stars. I don't think it's great, but I enjoy these characters and this world. And there was enough in it for me to enjoy it, even though I don't think it's that great.
Everything they built will fall!
Also in the last week of September, we have Hunt for the Wilderpeople. This is directed by Taika Waititi, who did Eagle and Shark, Boy, What We Do in the Shadows. He's done a lot of good kind of offbeat kind of comedies, and with his latest one, we have a film that's kind of like Kings of Summer meets Moonrise Kingdom, and you have Julian Dennison, Sam Neill. It's a really well cast film, even though there's a lot of like unknown New Zealand actors, and I think it's really well done, really well acted. Visually, I think it's probably his strongest film. I thought the cinematography was great. The editing, he's kind of like a New Zealand kind of Wes Anderson in a way, and I like that about him. And just his sense of offbeat humor, I just really enjoyed Taika's work. He's currently nearby, like just down the coast, shooting Thor, because I live in Brisbane, which is kind of cool. And I did get to see a Q&A after watching it in the cinemas with him, so that's pretty cool. And just, yeah, it's a really entertaining film. I think it's definitely one of his best ones yet, and just pacing, the humor, just the technical side of things, I think it's really, really good and really enjoyable. I didn't outright love it, but I do feel like it's a film that I could watch a lot, and it also has an emotional core to it. There's like this one specific scene in the film where I was really emotionally involved, and I really love that scene. And even if the rest of the film wasn't that great, that scene alone would be enough for me to recommend it. But this film is a whole lot of fun and really enjoyable, and I definitely recommend checking it out. And I give it 3.5 stars. It's close to a 4 for me, but unfortunately it just doesn't get quite there. But really good film. Highly recommend checking it out. It's a whole lot of fun, and it's good for family as well.
Didn't they actually did this? Tell them it was the Wilderpeople.
The what people?
And lastly, for September 2016, we have The Conjuring 2. Once again, directed by James Wan, and of course you have Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga back, and it's not as good as the first Conjuring, but it's still really, really damn good. I mean, the first Conjuring, it's going to be hard to beat. I really love that film, but this one's a really, really good film too, and I'd actually give the same score, but just visually, I like the first one a bit better. Though visually in this film, the camera's always moving, and it's really good, well shot. And the music is great once again. The editing, just James Wan knows how to put a horror film together really, really well. And the actors are fantastic. This cast is just great. It's a really great film and a really good horror film, and I really enjoyed the hell out of it. It definitely feels a lot bleaker than the first one, because at least the first film had the warmth of a family to it, but this one does not. But like, even though it's really bleak, there's always a bit of hope, and I just really thought it was a really well put together film with some really good scares. It's not as scary as the first one in my opinion, but it definitely did feel more dreadful. Like, there was a really massive sense of dread to this film, and it was more suspenseful and tension filled, though it didn't necessarily have many jumping moments for me. But I thought it was a really good film. I give it 4 stars, and I definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't already. We've been getting some really good horror movies this year, so definitely go check this one out too.
You are going to die.
so that's all the time we have for today. If you get to see any of these films and have any thoughts on it, feel free to comment below. My Facebook page, like that, comment there, follow me on Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe. If there are other films that did come out that you recommend, feel free to comment below, and just give me your thoughts on these movies too. Like I always say, this is just Australian and DVD Blu-ray releases. Like I know in America, UK, and elsewhere, you have other films coming out, and some of these won't come out there yet. And like I always say, this is just my thoughts and opinions. Feel free to give yours as well. But anyway, I'm just Rich Hall. This is Jared Productions. This has been This Month of Movies for September 2016. And just get out there and watch good movies.